Today's video is sponsored by the online weaving school, where you will find over 60 classes available for single purchase and a variety of memberships. There is really something for everyone. I will leave a link in the description box down below so that you can check that out. Hi weavers, in last week's video we went over a few different techniques to jazz up your plain weave. The first technique was stripes in your weaving. The second one was making loops, and the third one was making butterflies or weird little creepy crawly things. Today I'm going to be showing you a couple of extra techniques because there are just so many things that you can do with your plain weave to make it more exciting and a little bit more fun that I just couldn't leave it at one video. So let's launch in. Don't forget to check out the blog post that I've got linked for you down below for all of the details for the yarn calculations, the steps and sequences that you'll need to complete these techniques. Alright, without further ado, let's get on to the first technique. Now this is very similar to stripes, but a little bit different. I've been weaving along in some plain weave here with my maroon yarn, and I'm going to bring in not one but two different yarns. Actually, I think I'll save that one for after and bring in, let's see. I'm going to bring in the green and the paler pink together, and I'm going to treat these as one yarn even though they are obviously two different colors. Once again, you could wind these two onto just a single shuttle if you were going to be doing quite a bit of this, or otherwise if you're really lazy like me, you can just have these messy little bowls and lay the yarns in on top of one another. So I'm in the up shed and I'm going to beat those two down together and then go in the down shed, and then I'm going to tuck the tails of those two yarns into the next shed, and I'm going to follow up with some plain weave in the down shed with my maroon. Now at this point I can make some decisions about what I want to do next. I can keep going with my maroon background, or I can keep going with my two contrast yarns to make stripes. Either one is going to look great, and I'm going to actually demonstrate both so that you can see what they look like without actually having to do it yourself. But I do hope that you can put together a sampler of your own and just mess around and muck around and have fun with all different yarns and colors and see what you like. I can always show you things that I like, but we all have our different tastes, and it's really nice to be able to have things just as you like them. Now going into the down shed is the next shed, and then I'm going to follow up with one pick of my background weft, which is my maroon, and then I'm back into the up shed. So this is another way of building stripes, except you're putting the two colors together, which gives quite a different effect to if I was just, say, putting in one green and then following it with a maroon, and then putting in a pink and following it with a maroon. Would still look lovely, but this has a lot more impact. As you can see, these look kind of like lollies to me, and I quite like this effect. So I'm going to do a few rows like this, just as I'm doing, and you start to sort of build up these rows, and they look a little bit like blocks. And then I'm going to switch afterwards, and I'm going to build up more rows of my background plain weave in between so that you can see how that looks as well. Okay, taking my yarns around each other at the edges, and I'm starting with green and then pink every time. I can also swap that up, so I might do 3 rows of green and pink on top, and then I might do 3 rows of pink and green on top. So I'm going to do that right now. Seeing as I'm talking about it, I might as well see what it looks like. So beginning with pink this time, it'll be a subtle difference, but it will still be a difference. Following up with my background plain weave. So I'm just alternating sheds, plain weaving. And I'll do my pink underneath and green on top again. I'll do 3 rows of that total for the sake of symmetry. And it's pretty cool how you can just lay those yarns on top of each other and they'll just stay sitting. Actually, this one's come off a little bit, but you can rearrange that. And now it's flat again. Okay, so one last of these guys with the pink first. And green on top. Oh, don't get twisted now. There we go. Finish up with my contrast. And there we go. We have a pretty cool looking band of little blocks of colour that, as I said, looks sort of like lollies, or depending on where you're from, sweets or candy. And I've just cut those. Now I'm going to just do a bit of plain weave in between so that this stands out as a separate band of colour. And then we'll do the 2 colours again, but we'll separate them by more plain weave this time to show what a different sort of effect that gives. Okay, I reckon that's about enough plain weave in between to show that it's a nice band of colour. Advance my warp a little, and then I'm ready to start bringing those 2 colours back in again. Or maybe I should do a couple of different colours this time. Let's see. Depends what I've got. Actually, I'd really like to do this rainbow, but this is all I've got left of it, so that's not going to happen. There's not enough there. Maybe I'll do a darker blue mixed with a really hot pink, and we'll see how that goes. All right, so I'm going to bring those 2 in. Just leaving a tail on one side so that I can tuck that in afterwards. Bring this one in as well. And beat. Those 2 have twisted all around each other. I do want them sitting flat, so I'm just going to twiddle with them. There we go. All right. So into the down shed, and then I'm going to tuck those in. And this time I'm going to do a bit more plain weave in between these colours. Now, because I've incorporated a darker blue this time, it's not going to have the same amount of impact as these colours are, which are both lighter colours. They're still quite bright, but much lighter than these ones. So the hot pink shows up pretty well here, but the blue not as much. Once again, great reason to do a sampler is to see what's going to happen when you put certain colours in certain arrangements. So I'm not sure how many plain weaves I'll do. I'm just going to eyeball it. I've done 4 so far. I think I'll do 6 probably. or one more. All right, then I'm ready to bring back in my two colors again. So my blue, dark blue, navy to be exact, and then my hot pink on top. So if you were going to use something similar in a weaving piece, something you would have to think about is how far up the edges you want to carry your color, because I've done like 7 picks of plain weave in between since the last pattern row. I'm going to have quite a bit showing on the edge, and if I was doing a project I might not want that much showing on the edge, so I'd have to think about that and consider that. Then again, I might want it there as a sort of design feature, but that's something that you can figure out through doing things like this, just having fun and sampling, is to see how things actually look, whether you like them or not, or whether you need to change your design so that you don't have things like long floats on the edges. Of course, you could always get around that by just snipping the yarns, tucking them in and restarting them again. Then you wouldn't have those on the edges, but then you've got to think about bulk at the edges as well, and bulk in your actual weaving, because you've got 2 threads together there. So these are the sorts of things that you can think about while you're sampling, and that's why it's so good to sample. It teaches you a lot. One of the most important things it teaches you, I think, is about your own personal tastes and your own likes and dislikes, because when you're beginning weaving especially, you may not really know what you do or don't like in weaving, but usually most of us will have a certain response to something as we come across it, and that's how we find out what we do and don't like. Now I think I've got to do one more pick there, and then I can repeat this again. So you can see quite a different effect to our previous one. So this is much more minimal, but wouldn't this look lovely running right through a scarf or right through a table runner? Okay, so I had navy blue first. And so those of you who like a more sort of minimal approach, you might find that you like these kind of stripes much more than you like this kind of section. And those of you who like things to be bold and busy would probably be going for this kind of section. All right, that's the last pick that I'm going to do of those 2 together. So I'm going to cut them and tuck them in, and then I'll follow up with another band of plain weave. And when I've done that, we'll have a little close-in look of this section and how it's turned out. This is really easy to do. Just you're doing plain weave, but all you're doing is you're laying in 2 colors instead of 1. And you're making them sit on top of each other so that they're not all twisting around, and that way you can sort of see the boldness of the colors. But that just gives you some more options for doing plain weave with a little highlight, or sometimes a big highlight like this section here. All right, my next jazzing up technique is introducing a pick-up stick. Pick-up sticks are always awesome for adding a little extra oomph to your plain weave. So we're going to go into the down position, and I'm going to start by just picking 2 up and 2 down. Very simple. Okay, we'll pop that back. I'm going to then go into neutral. I've already done a little bit of plain weave here, so I'm ready to go on to my next pickup part so that it's not too busy compared to the last section. And I'm going to stay in neutral. I'm going to bring my pickup stick forward and put in a contrasting colour. I'm going with this lighter blue again because I really liked the other part of lighter blue that I did at the beginning of this lesson in the last video. So I'm going to beat that down. Then I'm just going to go into the up shed, tuck my little tail in, and then I'm going to bring in my background weft and I'm going to go around the pattern weft yarn there at the edge. Up shed, then we're back into neutral and pick up stick forward again, and I'm going to do almost on top but not quite because we do have one pick of plain weave running through there, but very close on top. I'm going to do another row of this pickup and then into the down shed because my last shed for my background weft was the up shed. So I'm swapping my sheds around each time when I go between the pattern pick. And then back into neutral and the pickup stick again. So basically it's pickup stick, up shed, pickup stick, down shed, pickup stick, up shed, pickup stick, down shed. If you can get that rhythm. I'm going to go around the edge here so that that's not pulling into the shed too far. And yeah, I'm building up rows of pickup. Going into the up shed, aren't I? Going around that edge again. So often when we do pickup, we kind of space it quite far apart as far as the width of the rows. But this one I'm piling on top because I want it to build up blocks of colour in specific patterns. So you're going to have your float areas and you're going to have your little dots in between, and that looks really quite effective. So that's my fourth pickup row, and then I'm in the down position for my background row. And then what I'm going to do just for fun in the midst of all of this is back into neutral, pick up stick forward, is I'm going to stick in a little bit of that lovely rainbow yarn that I've got, not very much of, just as a little highlight in the middle. So I don't need very much of it, so that's a good way to use up little bits of yarn that you might have. And then I'm in the up shed, also going to tuck in some tails. And on this side, I'm going to cut that weft and tuck that in as well, because I'm only doing one row of that. And I'm going to chase it with an up shed plain weave. Okay, then back into our neutral again, pick up stick, and here comes that pick up blue. And then I'm in the down shed. And I'm going to carry on until I have, let's say, yeah, 4 of the blue, so that I'll have 4 on this side and then 4 on this side of the rainbow. So back into neutral, pick up stick forward, and the blue weft is coming through. Then into the up shed for my plain weave, back into neutral, pick up stick forward. And once you get the hang of this, you get a sort of rhythm with it. Something I recommend too when you're changing sheds often, like if you keep your working yarn or your background yarn on a specific side of the loom for each shed that you go into, then it will be less confusing. So for example, my tendency is to enter from the right hand side when I'm in the down shed. So that tells me that right here I am in the down shed. And my other tendency is to enter the left hand side when I'm in the up shed. So that helps me to keep track. Once I've done my pattern yarn, as I'm about to do right now, then when I go to weave my background plain weave and I think, oh, which shed was I in? My working yarn is on the left, so I know that for me, because I always enter the left with the up shed, or most of the time anyway, it depends on the pattern that I'm weaving, of course, then I know that I can just come through from the left. So now I have 4 build-ups of floats underneath. I've got the middle rainbow one and then I've got 4 on top. So I'm going to cut my pattern weft and I'm going to weave a bit of plain weave to sit on top of that band there, so that we have a bit of plain weave in between. That was the look that I was going for with this particular piece, to just have a little band of it. And of course you can do as many of these as you like. Once again, you have to think about the practicality for the project that you're doing, to see whether it's going to be a good use of the pattern for what you want it for or not. So once again, things like how much wear and use it's going to get. All those things that you need to consider when thinking about which weave structure or pattern or whatever to use for your project. So I'm going to leave my band about there. So I've got a bit of plain weave before and after, and then I've got this focus sort of pattern in the middle. Okay, one more before I end this series. So my last pickup was I had 2 up and 2 down. I'm going to go into the down shed and this time I'm going to do 2 down, 2 up across. Okay, pretty straightforward. I'm going to start with that in neutral and pick up stick on edge. And I'm bringing in a bright green this time. I'm going to remove the pickup stick. And I'm going to weave a plain row, tucking my tail in first. Actually, I'm going to weave 2 plain rows. So one in the up shed and one in the down shed. Then I'm going to go back into neutral, I'm going to go into the down shed. And now I'm going to do 2 up, 2 down, across. Pop that into neutral and on edge and weave the green again. Remove that and then I'm going to weave an up and down shed again in my background weft, which is my maroon. Then I need to go into the down shed again. And again, we're going to reverse what we just did before and do 2 down, 2 up. Now, if you wanted to weave a good length in this pattern, obviously you would want to set up a heddle rod, because you can see that I'm using one pickup stick and taking it out each time. Hop into neutral and pick up stick on edge. And by doing that, I'm actually weaving 2 separate patterns, which means, because I've just got one stick here, I have to take it out each time. But the much cleverer way of doing it, if you're going to be weaving quite a lot of a certain pattern, is to set up one of those sticks on a heddle rod. Otherwise, you're going to be putting the stick in and out, and that can get a little bit tiresome, and it'll save you a lot of time to do a heddle rod, a lot of time.